second part of the tutorial, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece of artwork and we're now going to split it into layers so that we can animate it. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the text layer, and you see this is all broken up into little bits, and so what we want to do is we want to sort of start splitting this into layers. So I'm just going to cut that, create a layer and paste. If you do Control F, then it will paste it in the same place that you took it from. And I'm going to rename the layer. I'm going to call it roof, and then we're going to go through each of these in sort of individual bits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bit, I want to put an outline around that just to keep everything the same, and so I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to, and that bit I'm going to keep all of these at the same time, and I'm just going to have it as one element. But you can, and then that, and then I'm going to create a new layer, press F, so that's got all of those elements there, and I'm just going to grab the bits that I missed, and go back to that layer, go F. Okay, so this is basically, I'm splitting this up into small little layers, and then what I want to do is I want to take the windows, and I'm going to go X and F and go X and F, and take this X and F, and I'll put that in with this one as well, and then I'm going to take, I don't know what this is called, but so I'm just splitting these up into little layers, and I'll go around labeling them at the end. So let's just turn off some layers, could get a bit confusing. And then these, I'm going to have them as entire layers in their own right, and this one I think is the last one left in that layer. So if we turn all that layers, you can see that it sort of makes the entire house. We just got to get the order a little bit right, because we can see that the roof is sort of over the top of, like, this roof here needs to be kind of down there-ish, and this bit here needs to be underneath the windows, so we'll just move those that way, and let's just move these pallets out of the way so we can see what's going on. Okay, so that's looking good. So now I'm going to just label all my layers, which is really boring. So this one, I'm going to call it bricks, this is roof, and then we'll call this shutter 1. I'll rename this as well. this is, I don't even know what this is called, but I'm going to call it slab 1. And then this is I'm just going to copy so I don't have to type everything. Okay, so that's all labeled, and then we're going to save. So the reason why that is useful is because when we go into After Effects, I'm going to go into After Effects here, and here's sort of one I made earlier, but I'm going to delete that. And then I'm going to double click or go File, Import, and I'm going to look for this. And so there is my artwork. And then what we want to import it as is a composition and retain the layer sizes. So we go Open. So now we've got this. There we go, composition settings, and now we change this back to regular HD, like that, and we see that everything is a little bit small, but everything's labeled, and that's really, really important because we want to make sure that it's all the same size. The other thing is we want to take all of these and we want to kind of parent them to one thing. So that when we take the bricks and we scale it, so I'm just going to scale it up. See, everything sort of scales with it. If we don't do that, I'll just show you what happens. If we take all of these and then we scale it, they've each got their own. You can see we end up with something like really weird, and so because each got their own origin point, and so what it will do, it will scale them from their own individual origin. So I'm just going to make sure that they're all parented to one layer. I'm going to make it big enough, and then I'm just going to move this into position. I'm just going to center mine. You don't need to do that if you don't want to. And then we're just going to zoom in, and then I'm going to show you how to do, I'll do a little bit of animating. So I think we'll start off with the bottom layer, and we'll just do bricks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale this on. So I want it to end up being this size, and I want it to take like maybe 10 frames. So I'll go here, and I'll make this 0. So then when we press play, we're going to get this. I'm going to turn my resolution down. Because I'm screen recording, it's going to be quite slow. So it's going to kind of scale up to that. Let's just zoom in a bit. And then what I want to do is I actually want to put a little bit of a bounce in there. So I'm going to make this one just a little bit bigger. So like 155 or something. So now when I press play, it's just going to sort of bounce up to that size, and that's basically, what we're doing. So and you can see that they're all parented still, and so what I want to do is when I get there, I'm going to take them all, and I'm not going to parent them, because what I want is I want them all to be animating. at the same time. So you can do this any way you want. You can drop them down. So something like the next bit on here would be probably not that. That. So then what we could do, let me turn it on a bit more resolution, is I could take this, and then what we want to do is, like, when that kind of comes in, I want to bring this in at the same time. So we go transform, and then that's going to be the final position that it gets to, and that's going to take about the same amount of time. And then so this is X and Y, and then I want it to come down from the top. So it will do that. But what I want to do is I want it to do that and then sort of bounce a bit. So I'm going to put in another keyframe, and then it's going to go up, and then maybe do a tiny rotation. So and I forgot to put the rotation keyframe in, so that's 0. Just a little bit. And then put in another keyframe, and then 0. So it will look like it's sort of like dropping like that. And I'm just going to take this one and put a keyframe assistant on, just to kind of give it a little bit of acceleration. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do roof 2, and I can do exactly the same thing. And I'm going to make that fall down as well. And so that one's going to come, it's going to come from up there as well. And I don't think I did my previous one from the top of the frame, but and it's going to do that as well. And I'll just do a simple. I want to do less than that because I want this to be sort of appearing to be heavier. There we go. So I'm just going to repair this one because I don't think it's far enough out of. It's still in shot, so it needs to be kind of like there. And then we're sort of starting to build this up now. And then what we'll end up with is we'll end up with all of these things kind of making the building sort of come together in a sort of a live way. When we finish with that, what I'm going to do is make another comp. So this one's going to be like that, and I'm going to drag the previous one in so you can see that it's kind of like that. And if I press this thing, what it does is it means that everything stays kind of like in a high resolution. And then I can make this a 3D layer. and what we can do is we can move this back and forth, which is kind of interesting. But the other interesting thing is we can create a camera. So if I create a camera here, and my camera now is something that we can control, so we can take the camera and it's got X, Y, and Z. So if we go like that way, then we can move away from our sort of, we're going to go to camera 1. So now we can zoom in and out and kind of have this sort of treated as a sort of a scene, if you see what I mean. So that's an option of what we can do a little bit later. But for the moment, what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of animate those. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of animate these to a finish, and I'll probably fast forward through this bit of video so that you don't kind of see everything, because otherwise it'd be a bit boring. So I'm going to kind of like do this kind of slowly, and kind of get it done sort of properly. Okay, so I finished that, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my camera again, because we need to make sure that it's only got one point, because if you do this, then you have to animate where it's looking and also where it is. So we're just going to do one node. I sort of explain that a little bit better in class. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to animate the camera itself. So what we're going to do is just change its position. So here we're kind of like sort of make it go from here, and then when we get to like here, I want to change it so that the camera is a bit more like this and it's a bit more zoomed out. So let's just kind of zoom it out. If you press shift, you can make it go faster. So I'm going to end up like that. So now I'm going to press play. It'll take a little bit of time to kind of render because it's I kind of messed up the roof, but it doesn't matter, you kind of get the idea. And this is a very long sequence. Okay, so that's kind of cool. The only thing that I've kind of forgotten is I've forgotten to kind of add like extra sort of elements like background and kind of foreground and kind of things like trees and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Illustrator. I'm just going to hop back into it, and in here I'm going to kind of create the elements, but I'm going to create them in a sort of a separate place, and so that will sort of work out, if you see what I mean. So I'm just going to really simply and really quickly build some sort of elements for this. So this is going to be like, I'm going to make this like some grass, not bricks because it looks a bit weird. And then I'm going to create like create like a sky color, and I'm going to arrange center back, and all of this stuff I guess I'm going to put on the bottom layer so I can see what I'm doing. I've made them on the window layer, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to delete all of that kind of stuff. Because this thing I don't really need. It's going to delete that, and I'm going to create some trees. So you can do these any way you like. I'm not making them particularly sophisticated. That will do for now, and then I will create like some branches. I mean, I'm not going to win any prizes for this, but this will do. And now I'll just turn that green, but I want to make it a slightly darker green to everything else. And then what I can do is I can take that and I can copy it, maybe flip it so it doesn't look too similar, and then take this and copy it again and make a smaller version. Okay, so now I've got some trees, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those into their own layer. I'm going to grab all of this lot and just bin it, and create a new layer. Take this, create a new layer, and just pressing Control X and Control F, and then the ground I'll just leave like that. And then if you want, you can create some clouds. I'll do that very quickly. So very similar to trees, I suppose. my best work. In fact, I'm going to delete that and I'm going to use one of these. And I'm going to create a new layer for it. Press F and then fill that in and sort of make it a bit more like that. And I'll just have one of them because I'll duplicate it in After Effects. Okay, so that's kind of cool. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. I'm going to File, Save As, and I'm going to call this kind of, country. Save. Okay. Go back to After Effects. I'm going to import that as a composition. So where did I put it? There. Okay. So in here I've got all of the layers. I didn't label them, which is a bit lazy of me, but there you go. I'm going to go into here and I'm going to paste them. So these layers they're not 3D yet. I'm going to make them all 3D. I'm going to take this layer, which is the background, and I'm going to make that. I'm going to put that behind the house and then scale it up. Kind of stick it like that. And when we move stuff, you will see that the camera is moving with it. I'm going to do the same with the trees. So one of these trees, I'm just going to, I'm going to move. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of show you what it all looks like. So this is the kind of the environment. And I'm going to take this tree and just move it forward and then scale it up a little bit. Just move it down. So it's kind of like in the foreground, if you see what I mean. So when I go back to the camera 1, we can see that this is kind of in the foreground, and I'm going to move it like over here. So what that means is that when the camera moves, this will be sort of close in, if you see what I mean, because it is because it's in the foreground, if you see what I mean. So if we duplicate this and just move it across, and we'll get another one, and we'll have the same thing. And then what we can do, I'm not going to bother with these ones. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to duplicate it, and then we're going to go back into that custom view, and we can see all of our layers sort of like around. They're kind of in a weird place, but I'm going to take this background layer, which is here, and I'm just going to move that, ooh, wrong direction. I'm going to move that back in space, so when I take one of these and move that back in space, it will be like behind the building. And this is obviously going to be, window is going to be a bit small. So now when it sort of gives the impression that things are kind of in a different place, and the same with this cloud. So I'll go here, I'll find the cloud, I'll just scale it up a bit. And this needs to be, it's a bit confusing this, but you kind of get used to it. And then my camera, and now that cloud, we can move it across and do stuff like that. And I think we just got the edge of the composition on that one. Yeah, because it was off the edge of the composition, which is a bit silly. So it only imported. So here, because this is off the edge, it didn't get all of it. So press save and then go back to here, and then we reload it, and you can see that we get the edge of it. And then what we want to do is put this behind there, and then we can take this and we can animate it and whatnot. So I'm going to take that, transform, position, and I'm going to move that over there. So now everything is moving. And then if you really want to get sort of fancy about this, we can go into here and go new and bring in a light. So I'm just going to bring in a point light, and then a point light will make everything look a little bit sort of richer, or give it like a tone across it. The only problem is that it makes everything a little bit dark, so you have to be quite careful with it. But it will give everything a sort of a rich tone to it. And then we're sort of ready to go, basically. I mean, there's obviously more you can do on this, but what I'm just doing is showing you kind of what's possible and how we can quickly animate it. Okay, I'm going to stop this recording now.